PSG are one of the richest clubs in the world. Well, I am fed up of them always taking the best wonder kids off me, so I'm getting revenge. Today I'm going to try and break the game and bankrupt PSG. Things are off to a good start. Their bank balance is now minus 1 billion. So there we go, they are bankrupt, video over. Only, it's not that simple. All I've done is use the in-game editor to change their bank balance to minus 1 billion. By the end of the season, they've now got over £1 billion. This is actually ridiculous, but we can look into the game to see how they've done it. Looking at the club's income, they secured over £2 billion from other, which is the amount of income the club has received from various other sources. I don't know about you, but that just sounds quite dodgy to me, really. So as you can see, we are fighting a losing battle against the game to try and auto-balance PSG. So let's try and break it by going into the pre-game editor. Now we'll start off with the club's commercial income, and you can see all of their sponsors here. We could just delete all of them, but then the game just automatically generates some new sponsors for them. So instead, I will reduce all of them to just £100,000 per season. Next, let's reduce matchday income by changing their stadium to the smallest available in Paris. Then we'll reduce the price of their tickets to £1 and make sure they have the stadium's capacity as the season ticket holders, so no one can turn up on a match day to just buy a ticket. We will also get rid of their rich benefactor as well, so hopefully that reduces the amount of other payments they get made during the season. And then I'm going to change the TV money that every club gets in France from 35 million to just £100,000 instead. We'll start off a new season with a bank balance of £0 and see what happens by the end of the season.
A few moments later.
Good news everyone, PSG now only has a bank balance of 162 million. How? This is ridiculous. Looking at their income, the bulk of the money came in a new £154 million sponsorship deal. They also made quite a bit of money through prize money, which we can't alter too much, but it looks like the TV revenue that we edited has just reverted back to £33 million, which is rather frustrating. The good news is matchday income is limited to £82,000, so we have nullified that part completely. But I'm sure we can do better, so for our next attempt, we're going to try and increase the amount of money that PSG is spending. First things first, we're going to put their stadium rental up to £1 billion per season. Looks like PSG have already got a ton of debt as well, so what I'm going to do is put a 50% interest rate on that, and then I will duplicate it, and then duplicate it again, and then duplicate it again, and then keep duplicating it until we have 64 instances of this debt. Just a casual £32 billion. Player contracts are also pretty easy to edit as well. I select all the players, press edit, go to their contract, and I'm going to give them a base salary of £1 million per week. I'm also going to give them the maximum amount of bonuses they could possibly have, as well as a 100% yearly wage rise. Once again, let's start again with a bank balance of 0, and hopefully this time we're going to see some more damage.
12 seconds later.
Okay, now we are talking. Minus 545 million in PSG's bank account. Clearly something weird is going on here, because PSG made £1.6 billion from sponsorships and £1 billion from investments from the board. Which really makes you question, what is other? If investment is from the board, what is other? They actually ended up winning the Champions League, which is why they've made a ton of money from prize money, but it still wasn't enough to eclipse the expenditure, where they spent £1.8 billion on player wages, as well as £1.3 billion on loan repayments and interest. What I am confused about though is that the income for the entire season is 2.1 billion and the expenditure is also 2.1 billion. We started off with a balance of 0, so really the balance right now should still be 0. Instead it's minus 500 million. So where that money's gone, I don't quite know. I still think we can do better than this though. I'm going to add a 0 onto the end of each of their financial fair play years, so that way they are guaranteed to fail financial fair play. I'm also just going to remove the board as well, so they don't have any rich benefactors behind them, and then I'm going to go through all of their coaching staff and give them the exact same contracts that all the players have. So again, starting the club on a bank balance of 0, let's find out what's happening.
2 hours later.
Oh, of course, they've got a balance of 1.35 billion. Out of nowhere. How? Okay, I really think we may have broken the game here. In terms of investments, they made £462 million, and that was their biggest income last season, with 144 coming from other and 85 million coming from prize money. This is where I think we've broken the game. In terms of sponsorship money, they've made minus 1.9 billion. which doesn't quite make sense. Now, I think what the game is trying to say is they've made £1.9 billion from sponsorships, not lost £1.9 billion. Weirdly, on the expenditure, it is almost the exact same as it was in our previous attempt, even though we are spending more money this time around on staff wages. But essentially, I think we've done enough now where the game is kind of broken, so I'm just going to let this simulate out for a couple more seasons.
2,000 years later.
By the end of the second season, the club is now in £279 million of debt. So we are going in the right direction here. Crucially, the club are failing financial fair play. They are allowed a loss of 4.31 million, but they currently have a loss of 4.3 billion. That is very good for us because they're currently making £66 million from Champions League prize money and £17 million from Champions League TV revenue. But again, we are seeing some messed up numbers here. Investments last season was apparently minus 1.2 billion, and sponsorships this season are now minus 2.1 billion. Expenditure this season is the exact same as it was last season, so for whatever reason, it seems to be that £2,147,483,647 is the absolute limit of spending in Football Manager in a season. So it doesn't really matter that most of these players are now on £2 million per week, they're just never going to spend more than 2.1 billion in a season. But going forward another season, the club now have £1.8 million in the bank. So they've kind of broken even again. I'm not entirely sure how though, because their biggest income was prize money at 76 million, which is not a lot really. Although investment from the board is still minus 1.1 billion, but I think at this point we just know this is actually positive 1.1 billion. The club are also spending less money by looks of things. Expenditure is only 1.5 billion, down from 2.1. Apparently 1.2 billion of that was loan repayments and interest. But there's also a minus £2 billion in dividends and minus 1.3 billion in player wages. You know what, I really have no idea what is going on here. I don't think bankrupting a club is actually possible. It is really interesting though to see just how the game is trying to fix itself and trying to make sense of what's actually going on the back end. There aren't many players left in the team and they're all on £4 million a week at this stage. The team is still good enough to come in second place in League One though, but hopefully we are going to see them start to drop down the table. What I'm going to do is leave the game simulating for a while and we'll come back in 10 seasons time to see what's going on.
Tomorrow.
The year is 2036. I have touched nothing since we last spoke and PSG are now in the third division, fighting with the likes of other Parisian clubs such as Paris FC and Red Star. So it was a bit of a slow burner, but we have kind of destroyed PSG. We last saw them when they came second place in 2025. The season afterwards they dropped down to 10th, then they fell down to 17th and stayed around that level for a few seasons before finally getting relegated in 2031. They had a few bad seasons in the second division and then last season they got relegated to the third division, where actually they now have a chance to get promoted as they have come third and have qualified for a playoff spot. They have built themselves a brand new 10,000 seater stadium, so they're no longer constrained by the 500 seats that we gave them. But it hasn't helped their finances as they currently have a balance of minus 5 million. As you'd expect, sponsorship has dropped off dramatically and their second biggest earner is now player sales. One reason I think they're still down at this level is because they are paying massive amounts of money on loan repayments and interest, as well as quite a bit in staff wages. Now, at only £3 million per season, there's obviously no way they're paying staff at the same level they were at the very start when we put them on £1 million per week contracts. But the fact they're paying their staff more than their players is astounding. Now, they have reduced that £32 billion of debt down to 16 million, which is pretty impressive to be fair, and that's probably a big reason as to why they're so far down the French leagues. But also, I think they're caught in a debt cycle where to try and pay off their debt, they have to take out more loans, which is why they still have bank loans here of 5.7 million. And so in reality, what we've seen is just a slow decline over a decade rather than a quick, immediate impact that we thought we were going to see right at the start of the video. Now, I thought one of the great byproducts of this would be that there'll be plenty of different winners in League One. Wrong. Monaco are the new PSG. So maybe we need to bankrupt them instead. At least wunderkid Evan Ferguson signed for Monaco instead of PSG. Also, FM24 is right around the corner, and if you want to try and help me not become bankrupt, you can buy FM24 via my affiliate link with Fanatical. They're a Sega authorised retailer, and you get the code delivered to you straight away. I also get a bit of commission from it as well, and the pennies really do start to add up after a while. So if you want to help support me as a full-time creator, that would be lovely if you could do it via that link. Also, if you want to see a never-ending video of mine, this video on screen only ends when Luxembourg win the World Cup.